Hi there, and welcome back to the Business Beyond Borders podcast. I'm Cynthia Deeren, and on this show, I ask internationally successful entrepreneurs to share their stories and insights. My guest today is Chris Jankulovski, chairman and founder of Remote Staff, a recruiting company that provides offshore staff services and has offices in Australia, the Philippines, New Zealand, and the UK. Chris is a serial entrepreneur who has been building businesses for the last 20 years. He's seen a lot of success and a lot of failure, and he's also someone who has faced a lot of adversity on his journey. Chris describes himself as having been born behind the eight ball because he struggles with dyslexia and he couldn't read until he was 24. He also suffers from a genetic hereditary condition which makes his body prone to recurrent tumours. Despite all this, Chris is a fighter. His philosophy is all about gratitude and perseverance, and these are the principles he's applied to create success from some extremely difficult and overwhelming circumstances. And Chris isn't done yet. Today, we're going to talk about Chris's journey, how he built and expanded Remote Staff internationally, and about his new book, Just Keep Going. Chris, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we're talking in Sydney today, but you have just been on a red-eye flight back from Bali, is that right?
Yeah, we were in a fantastic resort, a health spa, where my wife really wanted to attend a conference that a friend was hosting, and I was resisting because we have a major renovation happening just next week, and we're moving out of our home at the end of this week. So it was the last thing I needed to do was go to Bali in between a major renovation. So,
and how was it?
I did.
How was it?
Oh, fantastic! I was blissing out, and I'm super relaxed after enjoying a whole series of healthy eating and jungle fantasy land in Ubud in Bali is just. Yeah, I'm more of an ocean person, but I was delighted to enjoy the jungle so much.
So you travel around a lot, right? And as I understand it, you spend about 5 months of the year back here in Australia and the rest of the time you're elsewhere. How do you manage to do that juggle of remote work and traveling with the family? I mean, I think your kids are kind of older now, but how have you dealt with that as they've grown up? What's it like?
Yeah, well, we've enjoyed remote working and living lifestyle for probably about 7 years straight. These days, we probably do about 2-3 months only overseas, cumulative, or maybe 4, and the rest of the time is in Sydney. When we had one child, it was very easy, actually. I highly recommend it before they turn 5. You just travel. They're easy to travel. They're easy to establish new habits and routines in flying, how to put your seatbelt on. You got to know when you fly, like the time when you fly is really important. Because if you're going to fly during the time when they are wanting to sleep or something, and then the flight attendants are insisting they got to wear seatbelts and stuff. So you got to be very strategic at when to fly. But we base ourselves 6 weeks at a location. We find that 6 weeks is just enough to get a feel for the place, get to know our favorite restaurants, locations, have little weekend trips around the area, work, get a feel for the culture, line up where the locals line up, enjoy what they order, get a feel for what people value in life in those parts of the world. And then once we get quite comfortable, we move on, because the point of remote working is not to base yourself somewhere. Otherwise, you're just better off basing yourself back at home. In my case, Sydney, Australia. So, but remote working, the beautiful thing about it is you get a chance to experience culture, different locations, environments, mountains, islands, beaches, jungles, you name it, all over the place. And you get to see what life's like from these parts of the world. So what I love about remote working, and anyone who does that, you're just basically saying to life, hey, I value my lifestyle just as much as I value making a contribution towards my society, work, or community that I've devoted to make a stand towards. So I love the fact that you could commit to becoming an entrepreneur or doing whatever you want to do, and at the same time, close your laptop down and enjoy Dubai or wherever you are.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, yeah.
What does the rest of your family do while you're running the business?
Well, my wife runs a very successful remittance company herself. Hers is actually close to $100 million in 3 years. It's phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's to me, she's like a freak of nature. She's the mother. She homeschools. She travels with me. She runs this company for 15 hours a week. I would be stressed out having a heart attack if I ran such a large company with so little commitment. But when we travel, we have a structure where we like to, commit to a time when we're going to work and be online, connect with our teams, but we're not involved in day-to-day operations.
Yes,
but we're very much involved in the steering the company, making a stand for what we want to accomplish, the execution, making sure our matrix are in place on a monthly, weekly, daily output, linked those activities to the individual people's performances, linked to the company's goal. The whole thing can run without you when you know how to build businesses. Yeah.
So have you always been an entrepreneur?
Well, I think I've been born behind the eight ball. Having a genetic hereditary condition makes me prone with cysts and tumours. Being dyslexic, didn't read until I was 24. I mean, I have so many adversities, failed in many careers. I think for me, entrepreneurship was the forced position left. Success was my only way out, basically. And because I couldn't get a job that I could enjoy, I couldn't get a career that I could build on. I didn't fall very well in this segment of life. And so I realized there's this other opening in that segment called entrepreneurship, where it's up to you to be as creative as you want and add whatever value you want to do, commit to whatever service you want to do. And then what I was shocked about, there was no one stopping you from earning as much money as you want. And there was a different playing field in this space. So I loved applying myself in entrepreneurship. I loved making mistakes and learning along the way. And I think you just got to be ready to adopt, change, grow, stand up, fall, stand up, lose, recover, learn, keep going. That's how it is, yeah.
So was there a moment for you where you said, okay, well, hey, this is what I'm doing, I'm becoming an entrepreneur, or did it happen?
There was, yeah. I was at 25 years old, and I was in a job. So I was studying as a graphic designer.
Yeah.
I only applied to one university that I backed out of. Well, I didn't get in, but I backed out of the whole concept. And then my dad gave me some jobs. And so I worked at these factory manager jobs, which I hated. And Groundhog Day every day. And then I quit after 2.5 years of work. And that was the last job I've ever held in my life at 24 something. I took 8 months soul searching. And that's when I was really in a conundrum, thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've got no options. Like, I've got no professional career I can fall back on. I've got no securities. I'm a young adult that's just moved out of home. I'm starting a new life. How am I going to make this adulthood work in this life? And if I couldn't sustain a job. That's when I realized, okay, I've been good at making money on the side always, and let me now take it seriously and really make it into a career. I didn't even know the word entrepreneurship, and I was already an entrepreneur before I even knew the word existed. Yeah.
And what did your family say when you said, hey guys, I'm bugging out of the workforce and starting my own thing? How did they react?
Yeah, well, my mum and dad are Macedonian ethnic descent, so they're first generation here in Australia. And so they're like, Chris, are you crazy? You got to have security. You got to have a job. But you're nuts. Yeah, so that's basically their response.
They must be pretty proud of you now.
They are. They still shake their head and they can't believe all the abundance I've been able to create. But yeah, they still remember that time. Yeah.
Okay, so today we are going to get on and talk about Remote Staff, which is the amazing company that you currently run and which you established back in 2007. But can you tell us a little bit about the journey that brought you to create Remote Staff? So I know you ran a few companies and were quite successful at creating those before. Can you kind of step us through what happened from that moment that you had when you went, hey, I quit my job, to, all right, it's 2007, I'm starting remote staff?
Yeah, look, it didn't happen when I quit my job. I was involved. I set up an industry. I set up a company called Industry Outplacement, a packaging and assembly factory to do with labour hire.
Yes.
On-demand labour hire. So it was, remote stuff is kind of in a similar space, but virtual. I had a brain operation, my first one, back in 2005. And then 2 months later, I had my right kidney removed because it was all consumed with cancers. And my left kidney had cancers as well that I had to take it in stages. Otherwise, they wanted to remove my other kidney as well. And I told everyone, let's just hold off, guys. Let's pause. I'm taking a year off. Look, if these things were in my body for 10 years, they're not going to kill me for another few more months. I was very blasé about it.
And so let me stop you right there, because for most people, I don't know that most people would react like that if they suddenly, discovered they had a brain tumor and then lost a kidney and maybe had to deal with losing the other kidney.
Yeah.
I mean, what did that do to you when that happened?
It was a real big wake-up call. It really was. To me, it was like, wow, if I don't start living the life I've always wanted, I may never get a chance to do it.
Yeah.
A new sense of urgency consumed me. I realized how finite our time is, and I realized that time waits for nobody. And during that experience, what I mostly copped the ego hit, which was, oh my God, I'm dying here, and yet the world carries on, And I really felt so insignificant during that time. And then there was a shift that occurred in me, and that was, enough is enough. You got to stop disempowering yourself. You got to stop not backing yourself. Start backing yourself. You don't have time to delay, to attempt. Just commit and go for it. Fail hard. Try hard. Sometimes you succeed. And I was always not thinking as big as I could have before, and now sky's the limit. So long as I'm willing to put in that effort, I'm willing to dream it.
And what did your family say? I mean, did your family back you, or did they say, no, Chris, take time out, rest?
No,
did they say, no, Chris,
shocked. Yeah, everyone thought I was a goner, to be honest, with cancers everywhere, and they all assumed I'd be dead. And frankly speaking, I at one point I even thought, shit, I might only have a couple of months left. What was funny was, at the time I lived at Bondi Beach, and there was the City to Surf marathon happening outside my window. I lived right on the Campbell Parade on the beach, overviewing the beach. And I just wanted to run. So 2 years before that, 2 years before my brain operation, I ran that race. My target goal was 60 minutes, but I ran it in 65 minutes, and I practiced and trained for it. And now here I am 2 years later, peeing out blood. I just had a brain operation, can't turn my head fully, and I just wanted to do this run. I got interviewed by some famous TV journalists, radio journalists, who had the same surgeon as me. And the surgeons and everyone was warning me to say at the hospital, Chris, you've just had a brain operation at the part where it controls your movement. We don't want to tell you no, but it's probably not advisable. Your body might just stop working. You'll hurt yourself if you do this run. So I just ran this race just because I wanted to. And to my shock and horror, I ran this race completely unprepared in 58 minutes and 22 seconds, beating my target goal of 60 minutes, breaking my personal best of 65 minutes. And then I stood there wondering, God, how much are we limiting ourselves before we even begin on anything in life? And that was the pivoting point that changed everything for me.
So, where did this confidence come from? Because at this point, you pretty clearly thought you were invincible.
I felt like I was invincible, but I was flying that run. And after that, I realized, hey, I'm here. I'm not getting out of here alive. And I'm just going for it. There's no more hesitation, doubts, insecurities around it. I was very indifferent. I shifted, and I was prepared to go all out. And it's surprising when you do back yourself and you do go all out, it's surprising how much energy out there, or universe, or whatever you want to call it, backs you.
Yeah.
There's so much abundance. It's about how much restrictions in yourself, these friction points, can you eliminate?
Yes.
If the more you flow, the more energy can flow through you, and the more you become vehicle or vessel to make big contributions. Or I've seen results work through me that are far-reaching.
And so the day after the race, what happened next?
Well, a few months later, obviously I had the kidney operation and then recovered from that. Me and 15 friends went to Thailand to have a bit of a holiday and celebrate that, hey, I'm still alive. And then I got back to Sydney and I was realizing, what am I doing here? I can't continue and just pick up on life after what I've just gone through. At the time, I ran a info marketing product, which is how me and Rob Rawson know each other.
Yeah, so and how you came to be on this show, because Rob was you were his recommendation for who I should interview next.
Yes. And so I created a course with him called Online Marketing College to help people understand how to benefit from Google AdWords and affiliate marketing and all those things. Back then, when Google AdWords was 5 cents a click, and it was easy to get traffic. Back in good old 2003, 4 days. But I ended up killing that business because, well, I had that brain operation. I recovered from that brain operation. I took a year off over 2006. And when I got back to Sydney, Rob had just reallocated part of his businesses in the Philippines and said, hey, why don't you, since you're taking a year off, why don't you come back? Why don't you come to the Philippines and try it out? Now, I've never been to the Philippines before that. I didn't know anyone from the Philippines. I knew nothing of the country. And I was shocked at, once I went there, how much of an impact the Philippines has made in my life and how much, it's been a big part of my life now. Married to a Filipina, running remote staff, specializing in Philippine talent. And very committed to the landscape.
So how did you meet Mrs. Chris?
Rika, like Costa Rica. Rika was in the Philippines. She was in Manila. She was a typical call center kind of Filipina, very intelligent, very small, typical Asian woman. I always complain about her height. I still do. I don't know. I was enjoying myself in Asia as a Western guy, but very uncommitted in any relationship. Didn't know how long I had to live. I just thought, okay, let's just second chance to life. I want to enjoy myself. Enrique was one of the women I happened to enjoy, and but there was something different between us, and I tried to break up with her numerous times, but every time I did, there was I kept getting the sense that life is going to be so less meaningful without her, and I made a decision to marry her. I sat on that decision for a year, told all my friends and family, didn't tell her before I proposed. Yeah. So wow. I am delighted that every one of these adversities have led into something next.
Yeah, that is a great story. Okay, so you were in the Philippines, and was this part of the catalyst for establishing remote staff?
For sure. I was there, a typical kind of ideas person that I am. And I'm, as an entrepreneur who's dyslexic and born behind the 8 ball, I'm forced to delegate. I'm forced to get things done through people. So I'm not blessed to be super intelligent where I can do everything myself, which I think is a disability in some respects, especially when you're playing the entrepreneurial game, because it's not about what you can do. It's about what others can do for you, the business for you.
Yeah.
So I had to really refine these leadership skills, management skills, delegation skills, accountability skills, measurement skills, tracking skills, people skills. When I was in the Philippines, I was delighted to see all these kind of like westernized culture, English speaking, lovely work ethics, great people. And back then, they were just very intelligent people that just lacked experience. Education was there, but I didn't think much of their education. But I found them like a blank canvas and very useful to get work done if I was willing to put in the work with that person. And I was. And when I did a few people, I got back to Sydney after the end of 2006. And in 2007, a friend of mine asked me to help him run his seminar. I did that. And then that was a great success. And then like a wealth creation seminar company hired me as a marketing manager for 8 months. And it was then that I hired a team of about 30 Filipinos to work for my company to service this one client that I was servicing. And that's how Remote Staff was born. While I was servicing this client, I was building the Remote Staff website and starting to place staffing solutions for other companies. And I was working at developing our technology to facilitate transparency, accountabilities, and establish this trust. Because if we're employers from Australia or around the world, then we give the trust to say, hey, look, Mr. Filipino, we recognize your skills, we value your experience, we've interviewed you, we believe in you, we're going to trust that we can work together. And, I needed a technology that can kind of solidify and build on that trust. And so we built that from the ground up. And so we've been involved heavily since then, hiring like over 8,000 people to work for our clients, for more than 2,000 clients. And we've got a really diverse experience now. I've seen a variety of employers, but we specialize mostly in those 1 to 10 hires. I think remote staffing, if you're going to have a remote team, I think you've got to be clear that you can build it comfortably. 1 to 9, 10 is, even 15 is what the most employers we see manage. Yeah. There are some employers that have got their stuff together, and they can grow it up to 30, 40, 50, 60. I grew it up to 60, but I made that transition. First 4 years, I was completely virtual. And then the last 6 years, I've been in the office. I struggled with having the right kind of managers per department. My departments not communicating properly with other departments when they got too big. Onboarding became really difficult. There were people hiding behind the screens, and we were just slowing down. And we didn't have enough structure behind us established to grow the team virtually.
There are so many questions that I want to ask you coming out of that. I'm kind of wondering where I should start. Let me start with this. The way that you talk about building remote staff, you make it sound incredibly easy, like you just decided to do it, and then it kind of just happened and it was cool and it was very abundant. But what were the first few years like? And can you remember any times where you were just tearing your hair out and thinking, I want to give up, why am I doing this? I mean, were there big challenges for you as you did this?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Never with remote staff. It's the challenges for us is always, how can we execute better? How do we be more consistent? How do we find the right staffing solutions for people? How do we make sure we understand the client's business objectives and their needs? How do we match it properly with our staff? Now, we're dealing in the people business, and it's always dynamic. It's always interesting. So we've never, and with labour arbitrage, with Filipino wages being so low, and dealing with Australian employers, 80%, 20% the American English. We are planning on expanding to America, which I'm delighted to say. We will be finally mature enough to take that market on. But to me, I've had that kind of experience more with other businesses, not with remote stuff. We've always had to reinvent the company. We've always been pretty much doing the same thing, but we've always had to rethink and review how we do it.
Yes. So I mean, you talk about stopping it, firing everybody, and essentially building it again from the ground up 6 years ago. Can you just step me through that very quickly?
That was a very painful situation. Imagine you have your whole team that you've founded the business with, and every staff member was hired for a purpose and a reason, and the other staff member was hired for a purpose and a reason to support the other staff member. And there's this whole connection of meaning, purpose, values, and relevance and connections between us all. And then I thought, Okay, because everyone's nationwide because they're remote. Initially, I had never intention of establishing an office. When I terminated them all because they couldn't work from a Makati Central Philippine office, I just assumed I just to replace the roles, and I made a very strategic mistake, which was there was always a connection between every seat, every role, and I just assumed that people sitting beside each other can figure out the relevance of their own purpose and existence in the whole process, but they just didn't. And so, and then there was underlying tensions and cultural challenges that I had to go through round A, round B, round C of staff, round D, round E. I had to, go through such a journey, and that's and that did affect our company growth because we were growing like this, and our growth kind of has slowly been growing since then. I think now we are poised to grow sometime next year much more aggressively, finally, with our technology being modularized and streamlined, cleaned up and improved. In the next few months, that's going to be back on track. And then we're going to start innovating again way more because our innovation was kind of hampered because I was caught up in operations. What a journey.
I'm going to come back and ask you a bit more about the company culture a little bit later on. But for now, you're in Sydney, but the company itself is headquartered still in Makati in the Philippines?
Yeah, it's in the Philippines. I live 1 week in the Philippines and 3 weeks in Sydney every month.
Okay.
And I'm now the chairman. After my kidney operation, living on half a kidney, I realised I can't be involved in operations anymore. And I was doing this, and I was doing this justice to the company because I was hardly ever there. And there was an operations manager that was there. And I'm not that technical. He was technical. I'm not that involved. He's involved. I'm not, there were so many of these things. And when I stepped down and realized I shouldn't be the CEO anymore and technically fired myself and empowered him to be the CEO, it was only then that I realized, Jesus, that was such a better decision. What was holding me so long into this role? Was it my ego? Was it my greed? Was it my fear? What the hell was it? Why did I hang on to the role so much? I mean, as entrepreneurs, we're blessed to be captivated by visions. We go all in, and we are committed to do whatever it takes to create them into reality. We're business builders. Every one of us are creators. But why was I so focused on needing to control it that much? Why couldn't I establish the landscape? I guess it's part of business maturity. You establish the landscape, you employ the people you trust, smarter than you, more capable than you, then get out of the way and let them take care of business. What can I say?
So these days, what type of clients and industries is remote staff working with? Headquartered in the Philippines. So a couple of things. What type of clients and industries, and also where are your clients? Because this is a truly international company, isn't it? I mean, you're splitting, your team are international, but your clients, again, are also international on top of that.
Yeah, look, we're an Australian company and we're a Philippine company and a UK company, soon to be an American company. We want to have a footprint in every country we mostly operate in because we want to be held accountable by our clients and we want to hold the staff accountable in this remote virtual relationship. We want to be like when employers hire somebody through us, we ask them to pay in advance, almost like an escrow, the staff wages, and that we have that as credit and that we tell the staff in the Philippines, look, we have the staff, the client's payroll in advance as a form of guaranteeing your wages. So when you work an hour, you're going to be guaranteed that hour. Yes. We are not involved in the output or the results, but we're involved in making sure the environment is fruitful for everyone and that everyone's kind of aligned. But the clients we service, 60% are the SOHO, people who've often hired their first employee through us. Getting their leverage and optimizing tasks. A lot of these people are self-employed experts, control freaks, perfectionists, which I'm often urging them to delegate to and trust in your people. that you hire. That's the only way you can scale, because you can't handle volume all by yourself. And 40% are larger companies. These are companies that are established in their countries. They've got 15 to 50 staff on average. They're serious businesses. These are the 40% of clients who want team solutions, very serious about the experiences, skills they desire. They want the right attributes in a person. It's not about the money, it's about the value that they can get from hiring somebody. Whereas the Sohos, well, it's that balance between value and cost, and you got to marry those two up. There's always a compromise game.
Yes.
So, but 80% of our clients are Australian, and then 20% are literally global. And the only reason why it's only 20% is because we intentionally have limited it in the past, because we couldn't really service it in the past properly. Different shifts. I mean, keeping a Filipino accountable working from home, even though we have office solutions as well for clients, but keeping Filipinos accountable working from home during a day shift is very different trying to keep a Filipino accountable at night, a night shift for the American clients. I mean,
why is that?
Well, we're talking about state management that needs to be applied, because people can be zoning out.
Yeah.
We gotta make sure that they are genuinely responsive, not idle. I mean, when you're working at home and the environment around you, everyone's sleeping, the frequency, the tone of your thoughts just mellow down, and you're at home in a remote, isolated setting. Yeah, it requires a different approach for us to make the relationship fruitful for the client. It's possible to keep that work kind of environment in an office, of course, but how do you sustain that in a home environment? And that's what we do.
And is it possible to hire an entire team from remote staff? So if a company came and said, Chris, I want a team of whatever they happen to be for a particular project, can you go and assemble that team and present that team as a complete unit?
Yeah, we can. We put teams basically up to about 20.
Yes.
Anything over 15, 20, we recommend there's too much friction point trying to make it at home. We recommend just establish it at an office. To establish teams at home or remotely, I know there are other companies out there that do it in a crazy scale, but we feel comfortable to create it for clients at like 5 at a time, get 5 working, 5 in the right equipment, internet, work, skill set, problem solving, culture, understand your company, get a feel for remotely managing them, have a unity amongst you all, then start growing and adding and adding. The most we've created for a company that wanted a team right away was 40. But that took a lot of effort, and we negotiated with the client and said, hey, we want you to come to fly to the Philippines and recruit the people, go through a massive recruitment process. We want you to do training. Otherwise, we're like the incubator. We are the ones, we're the agency that invests in our clients because we don't charge any upfront recruitment fees. So we spend a lot of money putting ads on Facebook, on online job sites, LinkedIn, and you name it. And so if we're going to put in this investment of real money, but then a huge amount of time, it's like a courtship these days. The Filipino country is bombarded with global employers all over the world wanting to access the talent pool. So a really good, experienced Filipino professional working from home or not working from home, they're in demand, and you really need to sell them these days as to why you should work with our client or what are you going to be doing. You can't just say, hey, like in the good old days 10 years ago where we just say, here, we'll give you this offer. Hey, here's the money that you can get. It's not about that anymore. And in India, it's even worse. Geez, if you don't have an offer on the table, and if you don't get them ready to start in 2 weeks, they're gone into another role in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So their window's even less. In the Philippines, the window's about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, depending on the role.
And look, I think that's a very interesting point, and people listening to this, I think, will be surprised by that, because especially companies in Australia don't realise the scale of global demand and what they're competing with. And Australian business on the whole, I think, tends to move a little bit more slowly. So I can think right now of some people who would listen to this and be very surprised if they thought that, the Indian web developer or coder that they were going to hire might come and go within the space of a fortnight, when maybe in their mind they'd be taking 6 to 8 weeks to hire that person.
Yeah, they can't make that decision. That's too long. They've moved on. I think roughly around 25% of all SMEs are outsourcing some way these days. You see it much more these days now, like accounting firms are dealing with accounting, especially in outsourcing, or real estate industries, or design, or there's segmentation already occurring in this industry, as you expect. But the next 10 years are going to be equally as aggressive in growth. I think as an employer, if you're uncertain as to how you're going to step into this world of outsourcing, or truly relying and counting on somebody halfway around the world that you may have not met, and be able to sleep well at night, be allocating real responsibilities to these people. I mean, it's a bit of a scary concept at first, but I think if you just get started, work within your comfort zone. Either if you feel comfortable doing the recruitment yourself, there's so many ways to go hire directly these days. If you're willing to screen for resumes and make your own assessment about the wages and the individual person, or you use agencies to get that start to help you culturally be more sensitive and aware of certain things that you may have not been exposed to help. The agencies will do the legwork for you. And also because they are constantly on the market and constantly on the providing these services, they're often the safest way to get started, because it doesn't guarantee success, unfortunately. I wish it did. But I believe if you hire directly, you're bound to hire, fire, 4 times before you find a relationship that you could say, wow, I think we sync. Whereas with agencies, I think that's down to 1.5. So it still happens. We don't get it right either, but it's less.
Yes. Well, our entire team now works virtually. We used to have a team that was mainly all in one office. We have now got team in Sydney, Western Sydney, Perth, San Francisco, Cebu, Chennai, Hungary and Jamaica. And to be honest, we find that our remote team works better than when we had everybody in the office, because we run our remote team with a really structured communication. So everybody knows when they'll be talking, and everybody has to come on the calls and contribute and ask questions and give status updates. But we found it to be an amazing experience.
It is. We've done a study between the staff we place in the office versus the staff who work remotely for our clients, and I'm talking in the hundreds or thousands. And hands down, probably by about 30%, the remote staff working from home who are productive are 30% more productive than those in the office, roughly. Because in the office, they were distracted a lot by meetings, by water cooler kind of social experiences. Often in the office, when somebody has a laugh or a joke and fools around, that could be a 15 to 45 minute loss of productivity, and that could occur 3 or 4 times in the day. Whereas at home, yes, there's socializing and chats and here, there, but everyone kind of gets on with things. They don't want to devote too much time. It's not the same social impact as face-to-face. So they don't have as much energy invested in socializing remotely. They just rather get on with the work and get on with mission and purpose and get on with the task and feel accomplished. So they just get on with work. And actually, they work harder. And with less commute times, of course, bedroom to the home office, the people are more than willing to just get on with it. Whereas those at the office, they've also got a lead-up time before they get started and warmed up a little bit. So, yeah, we were quite shocked that our that the hundreds of people we've placed in the office are just not as productive as those at home.
That completely tallies with the experience that I've had. I want to ask you about growing the global footprint now, because these days remote staff is a grown-up company.
Yeah.
Even though you run in a kind of cool and unconventional manner, you're a grown-up company and you're about to grow pretty aggressively again.
Yeah, about to go global, yeah.
What are the strategies that you're using or that you're going to use to grow that global footprint? And this, I'm really interested in this because this is so relevant for many of the people listening who are on this international journey on some scale and who are thinking about, how do I do this? You know, I want to take the company out of the domestic market and I want to make it international. How do I do it? Can you talk us through some of the things that you're doing to make that happen?
Look, first thing you got to recognize, despite our color, race, location, we're all human, and we've got various forms of intelligence, and we can all communicate. Distance is irrelevant now. I mean, where are you based at the moment? I'm not sure.
Sydney.
Oh, okay. We're both in Sydney.
Yeah, we could actually have done this in person, but you know.
Yeah, but we could be anywhere, and it doesn't matter. A relationship can be created. A commonality can be created. And I think the first thing you got to recognize as entrepreneurs or employers or businesses that are considering this idea is that you are affected by globalization. So
Yes.
why can't you take advantage as well for your business?
Absolutely.
And that's the first thing you got to recognize, that there is parts of the world that don't cost as much as Sydney, for example. The cost of living is far less. Wages are far less. And what's amazing is that those wages that are far less, like in the Philippines, for example, doesn't mean we're abusing or taking advantage of these people. They're living quite well, actually. And as a matter of fact, many of the people we employ have drivers, housekeepers, maids, and all this stuff. And here we are in Sydney, you know, we can't even afford these things. So in different landscapes, it's, you know, you've got to understand that there is these different environments. And that's why I think now remote hiring or remote staffing or this idea of rethinking your staffing approach needs to be, in my opinion, it just must be global. From a talent diversity point of view, and also compared to outsourcing that happened 10 years ago to now, how many places in Jamaica or South Africa or in Eastern Europe or India, or Pakistan, Philippines, Indonesia, you name it, how many more people have gained experience working with international employers, Western employers in particular, around the world? So many, because this has been happening. We've seen it. When I started the company in 2007, I've seen a massive shift occur in 2012, where it was overdrive. So look, I think there's two schools of thought. You could either have a low trust environment of these people and just deal with tasks and output and just hope for results, and go to the freelance market centers. That's where you could get that kind of labor pool, and that's where you can get that kind of result. But if you want to think like an employer-employee kind of mentality, people that you can really rely on and count on, invest in, train, grow, fly over, visit them, all that kind of stuff, understand that there is this landscape as well. And this landscape has been maturing, and there are countless thousands, if not millions, of these relationships occurring around the world, all types of businesses. Some clients tell me, but I can't make it work in my business. And I go, that doesn't mean I haven't seen other clients in your industry not make it. The difference is how much are you willing to put effort in? I mean, if you want to work with the Filipino people, they prefer a hierarchy. If you don't have a hierarchy, there's a bit of a problem there. They prefer a structure. If you don't have any structure in your business, that's another problem. There's enough adversities and things against you to fail. The internet, online overload of information, culture, communication, misunderstanding. There's so much against you. You've got to apply some of the basics. And I think if I was to summarize misunderstandings, like really misunderstandings of what's said, is only 10%. What we found. 40% is actually misunderstandings that occurred as a result of the understanding of the use of the English language is different.
Yes, yes.
And then 50% is culture. And what we mean by culture is that you got to recognize that they don't have your worldview. They don't have your assumptions that not being brought up the same way you have. They don't. When you give somebody instructions, you can't assume that they've understood it the way you have. And so that's where a lot of problems occur, because in these various other cultures, they say, yeah, sure, yes. Because they've got the hierarchy mentality, therefore they're not going to question you if they're not safe. So they're going to say, yes, and they're going to hang up the phone, call up their colleague and go, what the hell did he just say? They all behave this way. Yes.
So just to go back to this question of how you will actually go about growing the global footprint. For example, as you go to get clients from the US, how will you do that? Will you say, okay, we're going to do social media strategy and we're going to do blanket coverage of Facebook and Twitter with ads, and that's how we will get people? Are you going for resellers? Are you going for distributors? Are you getting on a plane or sending somebody on a plane yourself to go and set up meetings? What does that look like, that process of saying we're going to the States? Sure. Yeah, from there, hey, we have to get clients. Somebody in the States has to pay us for our service.
Our approach is going to be quite conservative. We're going to make sure our technology is refined, our processes are refined. We have to have the right system in place to service the volume of inquiries. And then we will simply do our PPC and SEO efforts online and go for the low-hanging fruit first, those people who are searching for solutions.
Yes. Service
those, because there's abundance of them. There's so many people that don't know where to start, how to hire from different cultures, how to work with different cultures, what should they do in their duties and tasks and roles. I mean, there's so many people that need a helping hand. So we're an incubator. We're not like these office-based solutions where, they hire for you, lock you in an office contract and then give you these ridiculous fees to buy them out. Our job is to make sure that we establish a relationship that you truly can rely and depend on, that you both can feel safe, that you've matured beyond us and are comfortable to work together without our involvement. And we don't want to penalize people who want to move on. We want to support this. We regard this as an achievement. So there are so many of these people looking to create these meaningful relationships. And so all we have to do is just, we got to be careful as well. We can't accept too much business because, again, we are paying for this upfront recruitment effort and investment in our clients. So I think for us, we've tried to grow aggressively in the past, and we're not a scalable business. We're slow and steady. We're in the people business. We're in the relationship business. We're not in the output business and task business. We're trying to establish meaningful, productive, purposeful relationships. And at the end of the day, when people get too caught up in results, we just go, hey, you got a person on the other side of the world, recognize that person, recognize the relationship if you want to form trust. And without trust, that's, you're not going to get collaboration. You're not going to get true communication. You're not going to get true involvement. So
this is really interesting what you're saying, because where most people are thinking, how do I get clients? How do I get clients? How do I get clients? What I hear you saying is, we basically won't be able to service the demand. We're going to have to turn the tap off at some point. And for us, this is really about people and relationships and trust. That's the core of what we do. And we're going to focus on that, put it out there. And then when we get too much work, we'll just turn off the marketing machine and we'll deal with what has come to us. Is that right?
We don't turn off the marketing machine, but we slow it down and we get more selective in the clients we work with. Like if a client is looking for a project-based work, we just say, sorry, mate, or we're not the right environment. But as we put in up to 20 to 60 hours of sourcing, and that's a lot of work, obligation free, like, you don't have to hire them, but we will do this if we recognize that you know how to work with people, you're a real employer that has a genuine need, and you've really thought about the idea of adding somebody remotely, we'll be delighted to back you. But so many people have no idea what they're doing. They assume that remote management is simply sending an email with instructions and follow it up every now and then. It's so wrong. It's like, oh my God, you really think you could steer your team in the direction you want it to go just by an email and chat? Really? Oh, but I'm too busy, Chris. I don't have time to work with them. Well, then you shouldn't outsource, because remote management is a different skill to an office management.
Absolutely. Well, looking back on the last 11 years of remote staff, is there anything you do differently if you could have the time over again?
Oh, look, I guess I would have definitely not tried to lead the business for that long. I would have stepped back. It's like like my Tai Chi master. I'm practicing Tai Chi. Was after my health adversities, half my body doesn't work so well. And he goes, sometimes by stepping back, you get more room to do more. And by stepping back, I'm innovating, creating, solving some more meaningful solutions, problems, and I'm moving faster than I've ever moved in the business. And yet I've stepped back. It's phenomenal. So I'm now not wanting to just reshape remote stuff, but I'm wanting to reshape the whole damn industry.
That is a big and a very, very noble goal. It's interesting to hear you say that, though, because so many people are frightened to step back, afraid to let go of control, and afraid that if they outsource things to other people, then, how will they know that it's being done properly or done the way that they want it? But it is astonishing what you see happen to people and in people's businesses when they actually say, well, maybe this is not the best use of my time. My time is my highest value, the thing that's most important. How can I leverage this, and how can I create the most impact? And it's, as you've recognized, it's not by hanging on to every last thing. So you would have stepped back sooner. Anything else that you would have done in a different way?
I would have applied myself more in innovations, because we were so caught up in trying to provide a service and a solution to the clients, but we did it at a cost of our own innovations and technical advancements, which is now what we're doing much more. But so that's something I would have done as well. But no, otherwise, look, I lived around the world. It was a lifestyle business to begin with, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And as a friend of mine said, look, you could have grown the business so much more aggressively, and you could have had so much more market share if you got funding and you went all out. But no, I've been cash flow positive day one. I've been stress-free, grey-free since day one. Life's too short to commit all in, I think when you want to serve, because I believe a business is a vehicle to serve. When you want to serve, you also need to be served. If you're not served, how can you serve others? So I believe there needs to be a bridge. And as the company matures, as I've matured myself, I think then my capacities will naturally widen. And now I'm in a capacity to do more, to make a bigger impact.
I want to take a slightly different tack now. And you've had some really adverse times. You've had some pretty significant health challenges. And by the sound of it, that is something that you are always going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Where do you turn when things get rough? How do you cope with those days where you don't feel good, or your body's not doing what you want it to do, or things in the business are difficult, or there's something else that pops up that just makes the day hard? What tools have you assembled around you over time to get yourself out of those tough situations?
Well, I think it's after the first brain operation diagnosis, when this big 5.5 centimeter tumor was found in the back of my head, I got out of that doctor's clinic, looked up at the sky and said, God, I've had enough. Like, kill me, why don't you? But I am no longer going to let my hereditary situation be a disempowering moment in my life. I choose to move on. I choose to believe in the future. I was diagnosed at 19 with von Hippel-Lindau, or VHL, and that makes me prone to cysts and tumours in all my major organs.
Yes.
And so unlike cancer patients where I don't remember the percentage, where 11 or 8% have reoccurring cancers in their life, I am one of these very few people that have cancers grow hereditary. So I will have it reoccur, and I have had it reoccur over and over and over. And so I'm always having to take on these health battles. I've had 8 near-death experiences, and I've bounced back from every one of them. I feel like that old Chinese proverb, get knocked down 7, stand up 8, is very relevant for me. I think I really truly recognize that this is my time. I am here. I might as well make the most of it. And my motto is, hey, if I only have 3 more months to live, then I still want my life to matter. I still want to enjoy it, and I still want to, work towards what's meaningful and purposeful to me. Look, it's grateful. I think at the end of the day, you got to just be grateful. You can't move on from these adversities if you're going to complain that your arm no longer works, or your vision's affected, or you can't walk anymore. I used to run realestate.com.ph in the Philippines. I've spent $2 million, 2.5 years of my life running that business, from February 2016 to February 2014 to June 2016. I had my operation in September 2016. I dropped that business like a ton of rocks the moment I got diagnosed with these tumours, because I was paying a big price running that real estate business. I was competing against 2 billionaire kind of competitors, Naspers and Rocket. I was really loving this David and Goliath battle. I was loving the brutality of it all. I loved the market competition. I loved that I was the only self-funded entrepreneur in the game. I had powerful domain names. I was gaining traction. We had the most listings at one point. We had 220,000 visitors a month, 9,000 inquiries. We're doing really well, but I was failing to monetize. I had a real massive misunderstanding of the landscape on the real estate segment in Australia versus the Philippines. Very unregulated. The place operates like cowboys. People there, very few on full-time wages. It's commission. It's dog-eat-dog world, and here I am trying to monetize, and against 2 other big players, and we weren't succeeding. And I was paying financial costs, but I was also living 3 weeks away from my family. I was 3 weeks in the Philippines, 1 week in Sydney to be with my family. I was paying such a price, and I spent 2 years. I stopped remote working everywhere around the world. I was going for it in this business. And then that was an example that I was saying, look at the price I paid. I couldn't serve anymore because I was giving so much of myself, too much of myself. And so therefore, and I still had remote stuff on the side. So remote stuff was occupying 20% of my time. Realestate.ph was occupying 80% of my time. An experience I valued so much, and I'm proud of, even though it's a failure technically, commercial failure. We succeeded as a portal, but the experience I know will serve me in the future, because as long as I'm alive, because I now know what to do when I take on this global battle with remote stuff. Before that, I wasn't really too sure, but now I do. I know what it takes to compete globally. I know what it takes to compete against big players. I know what it takes to take on market share. I understand what it takes to service volume.
And what is that? What is that, do you think? Can you encapsulate it?
Yeah, look, you just got to realize the numbers are just so different.
Yeah.
We service between 50 to 70, 80 people a month for clients. We place these amount of staff at the moment. That will double to triple. And then if let's say that triples, I mean, that's whatever it is, say 250 relationships every month that you have to place. You have to communicate. You have to calibrate. You have to set up departments just to take care of one specific element to be done right. And so I think when you take on volume, you really have to rethink how you approach the service, because you can't do it ad hoc. You can't just go, let's try this, let's try that. Now you'll get into so many problems. And when you go with volume, the problems can compound. That's the scary thing. It can really get so overwhelming so fast. So I think when you are thinking you want to step up, you got to get prepared for the volume management.
Chris, in amongst all the other things that you've been doing, you've found time to start writing a new book, which is called Just Keep Going, I believe. Can you tell us about that book?
So after my second brain operation in September 2006, I woke up with half my body not working. I was bedbound for 2 months. I had 2 tumours removed in the middle of my head. I am still nursing probably 40% of the symptoms. I've had to learn how to walk and talk and use my legs and arm. I had rehab for probably 7 months. I've been on a walking stick for probably 5-6 months. I'm now 5 months, 6 months free of any walking aids. I'm still healing and making progress. When you have neuro damage occurred, I had my right hemisphere, my left hemisphere chopped. So all my pathways were cut. So now my left arm, this is as fast as it can move. So it doesn't move very fast. As you can see, that's me moving as fast as I can. So that's across the whole left body. Actually, half my face at one point didn't even work well. My tongue doesn't work well, tone deaf, my vision and the interpretation. The list of complications go on. But I was supposed to go in and out. It's supposed to be an easy operation. But one of the tumours burst in my head in the operating room. Next thing you know, they're fighting for my life. And instead of taking me out of the hospital, putting me, after I'm done with the hospital, bring me back home, they wanted me to go for 2 months in a rehabilitation centre. And I went to this rehab centre, and the moment I checked in, I checked out. I said, look, hey, I'm a wealthy man. I can afford my own biscuit ladies, my own rehab people. Stuff this, I'm out of here. I didn't want to stay there. And I got out of there. And for 2 months, I was bedbound. I was up at 7, couldn't get out of bed for 2 months, by the way. And I was a knockout, virtually coma state from 2 p.m. onwards. I became a diabetic as a result of that. And my left kidney that was nursing 2 cancerous tumours had erupted with 6 cancerous tumours, all at 2.5, 3 centimetres to 4 centimetres, which I had removed in October 2017. So I've had this huge health adversity. And when I got out of the hospital back at my home, I realized that was the first time where I confronted my mortality in a way that I said, after every battle, I always say to myself, no, I'm not going anywhere. I still choose life. But this recent adversity, that 2 years ago, was so severe that seriously, there was no way to live. For the first 2 weeks, I just kept saying this was nowhere to live. How do you expect me to live like this? I mean, it was just ridiculous. Both eyes had 2 different visions, both spinning in different ways. My world was totally. Imagine your sound, because there's 100 different type of brain operations you could have, and these are to do with your bodily movements, and mine was pretty messed up, and so I said that the moment I could get off bed, stand on my chair for at least an hour, or sit on my chair, I should say. I can't type it anymore, but if I can rant on a chair for an hour, I will hire a writer, assistant writer, ghostwriters and whoever else, and start writing a book. It started off as a journey first for my boys to get to know me, to know this entrepreneurial adventures I've had, the wild adventure of being diagnosed at 19 that I'll be dead by 30, me at 19 to 30 years of age just didn't believe in the future. I was a wild child, and these stories are fully documented. It's a true story. Wild stories. And then falling in love in a very unique way, and then remotely working and living around the world for close to a decade. And during that time, creating success and building the remote stuff business along with other things. And then the story just added, the experiences are quite full on. And so there was a lot of value in this beyond just my own sons. And so we thought we take it to a wider audience. And so the book is called Just Keep Going. Determination is your greatest asset. A dream, a terminal illness, an extraordinary life is the subtitle at the bottom. So it's almost complete. We are we've had a professional editor review it. We've spent 5 months changing it. It's been a 1.5-year process. Over $50,000 has already been invested in creating this book. We're going all out. And, I've enjoyed the process. Yes, it's been healing, but what I've loved most about writing a personal bio was that I get to really think clearly about my worldview, my philosophy, what I hold true, what kind of experience I've had that I've seen shape my life. And I've wanted to share without kind of giving advice. It's more like, hey, this is how I've lived my life. This is how I've reacted, responded, and managed certain adversities and kept going. And hopefully you can learn something and see that as either an inspiration or a warning. And that's the book, basically, yeah.
Can people pre-order a copy?
Not yet, unfortunately, but we will on the justkeepgoing.com website. We will put a pre-purchase ordering or show an interest when it's closer to being ready. We're thinking it's going to be ready towards the end of this year. It's been a delightful work. I hope anyone going through any serious adversities in life will find this book remarkable, because unlike other people, I'm completely self-made, but I'm not self-made in an environment where the rain never rained and it was always perfectly shiny. All things were to my advantage. I came completely as an underdog. I was completely self-made as a result of my adversities. It was my wake-up calls that kept me, my adversities kept me evolving and growing as a person.
I can't wait to read the book. I'm going to make sure that a copy of the link goes into the show notes so the people who are listening to this can go and check out the page and can get a copy of the book. And I'm definitely going to read it. I think it's going to be fantastically inspiring and informative and helpful to people who are doing life and to people who are building businesses and think, oh, this is all too hard, I can't be bothered. Because most of them haven't had to put up with a fraction of what you've had to go through, and you've persevered and succeeded in spite of it. So I'm in awe.
Numerous times as well.
Yeah. And got up and kept going even when it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Chris, we are running out of time very rapidly here. I've got to let you go very soon, but I wondered whether you could just share for our audience your final thoughts for entrepreneurs and business owners who are wondering whether they can actually do this thing of running an international business and going global. What do you recommend?
Well, one side is, let's call this left hand, is a 40-year career of barely surviving on a job. And on here is applying yourself and having no limits in what you can create and the value you can provide. I feel like life's too short to not apply yourself. I feel like life's too short to live in a very compromised way. I think you got to really reassess what's the price you're willing to pay. And for me, I burned my bridge at the age of 24, 25, and I said there's no other way I'd rather live. And And I didn't have a fallback. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have any other solution outside of success. So I think if you get yourself to a point of you don't have to get to that point, but you've got to get to a point of resolve to say, I choose to be an entrepreneur, to be in business for myself, to make a business. And that doesn't mean serving me, but I have to work 10 times harder as serving others. So if you're prepared to do that journey, that's the entrepreneurial path. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's no guarantees in success. and you're going to have far more failures than success. But one success can pay a dividend that far exceeds all the efforts. But the other side is called a perceived safety net. You feel like you've got a secure, ongoing, regular pay, but it's an illusion, and you're going to be broke for most of your life, no matter what. and you'll be always governed and limited by what somebody else is willing to give you as an opportunity. So why don't you go out there and prove yourself in life and let the results speak for themselves.
I love it. So, folks, there you have it. Chris Jankulovski, fighter, survivor, and massive success. Thanks so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the Business Beyond Borders podcast and you're thinking about expanding your company internationally, you might want to check out the International Business Accelerator, which is something I created to help micro to medium-sized businesses to speed up and de-risk the process of internationalization. The International Business Accelerator, or as we like to call it, the IBA, is a program built on the 3 principles of skills and knowledge, mentoring and accountability, and community. I built it especially for founders and CEOs who want to take their business to the next level and are wondering where to start. The program is structured in a way that's simple to follow. It's digital, so you can take part from anywhere in the world. It's a lot of fun, and our members love it. So if that's you, if you're thinking about going global, check it out at internationalbusinessaccelerator.com.